You know what he did? He laughed at me. He laughed so hard about my loss. I was like, are you insane? I lost $30,000 or whatever it was. I'm like, what am I gonna do? And it will be a risk management education that's gonna be $30,000, which is the cost of an average American undergraduate year. And you probably learn more than most kids will for 4 years of college.
What's up, YouTube family? So I'm coming back at you with an awesome interview from Boris Harhaji. He is from Serbia, and I am just really excited to share his experiences with you. He had some really high highs, and he's had a few lows. He's been investing for a while now, since he was 18. He came over here under their work and travel program, which is where they come, they experience the U.S. culture, they work for a little bit, and then they travel the U.S. to kind of get the culture. And then he went back to Serbia, did some things there, and then now he came back full time. He had a mentor to help guide him that was in Geico. This is where he works full time, and he invests in real estate, in stocks, and in precious metals, gold and silver. So I'm super excited to introduce him to you, and the value that he brings is incredible. He is calm, he has learned, he has achieved the American dream. So I'm just excited to share his value with you and what he has to add. And so let's get into it.
Well, thanks a lot, Bo. I really appreciate it. And I'm really excited to make this video. It's something I've been thinking for a while, because as you kind of start progressing slowly through life, you really want to share that with people and try to encourage them to see the right path, help themselves, and try to just do some good. We can do good and do well. Basically, both things are optional. So I really appreciate it. So my story, I believe it to be kind of interesting. So I grew up in Serbia, Eastern Europe, for those who might not know, and watched a lot of American movies. And as I was growing up, I really was interested in coming to the United States. Frankly, I always knew I'm going to come here and I'm going to find a way to stay here. So that's kind of my path. I've been working on this to just come to the country probably since I was in high school, making sure I have good grades, making sure that I go to college, do well, and figure it out. So a few things that we do in Eastern Europe is there's this program called Work and Travel. It's generally a lot of Eastern Europeans would spend their summers in the United States working. It's kind of like, it's called work and travel because the idea is that you work for 3 to 4 months and then you travel the country for about a month to kind of get yourself educated about the culture, to learn a little more about English, see how people are generally living their lives. And I went to this agency, and long story short, I ended up in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which by all means isn't the average American. Like when I came there and I was like, wow, everyone has beautiful houses. Everyone is driving nice cars. Everyone's so friendly and nice, which is of course because everyone's vacationing, so people are generally in a good mood. So that is kind of my first introduction to the U.S. And I realized, okay, this is pretty good. So like, let's see what it takes. And I've been working at a restaurant where I was waiting tables for about 3 years, and then the fourth summer. So I was kind of going back and forth while I was actually in my undergraduate school back in Serbia. So working on there, pretty much the first summer, there was this guy who drove up it was a brand new Mercedes SL 55 AMG, kind of loud guy, but very funny and kind of like brightens up the room. And my boss said, hey, there's this guy and he's a businessman. And I know you're studying business in undergrad. Do you want to talk to him and kind of can introduce him? I'm like, sure, like why not? So as soon as we saw each other, we kind of hit it off, started making some jokes. And I was like, this is such a nice guy. And what was the best piece about, his name is Bob. So what was the best piece about Bob is that despite his success, he was about 65 years old at the time. And despite his wealth, he was the most down-to-earth guy, great executive, like really a great guy. So what I want to tell people is that Bob and I hit it off right away, but I was afraid. I come from a country where you don't ask people how did they got successful. Back in the day, we had war in the 90s, we had a war of 99. A lot of people who were wealthy in Serbia back in those days did not necessarily come to that wealth through like all the legal or means. So you generally don't talk to that, don't talk about those topics. With Bob, it was a completely different story. I was actually able to simply ask him like, what do you do? Like, how did you get these cars? It was very open, and I'm a Serbian, we're very blunt. Like, you don't just meet someone and you say, wow, how did you afford this car? But like, I was a kid, you know, it was like in a candy store, and I was just impressed. One thing that I do have to say is that after we kind of split that summer, after a few more conversations, even though he gave me his email address, I didn't contact him at all. And the reason is, okay, we had some fun. He tried to help me out and kind of talk to me, but he doesn't really, you know, he doesn't have time for me. Who am I? A poor Serbian kid from a B-rated school. He probably knows hundreds of Ivy League grads who are much successful, much better pedigree. Like, why would he talk to me? I think he was just, I was kind of worried he was just pretending to be nice. You know, fast forward next year, I came back and he was still there again, coming to vacation with his family. He has a summer house in Cape Cod. And I said, you know what, Bob, I see you're a really good guy. And that's when we really hit it off. I offered to buy him a lunch. And I even remember I was so like nervous that I waited for him to order food first so I can order something similar. Kind of like, it was kind of funny, but really I was like 20 years old. And like, to me, this was a huge country and everything was different. So, you know, long story short, ever since that, Bob and I really stayed in touch. We built a relationship. He was my mentor. When I worked in Serbia I actually ran an agency, the same agency that sent me to the US back and forth. I ran that agency and opened a new branch for them because they asked me, since kind of have a good experience with me as a student who was working, they wanted to check on that. So working with that was also another great experience in which Bob guided me through.
So I just want to kind of backtrack a little bit. People just need to realize that they just need to take action. Just a small question that you could ask somebody and open yourself up and become vulnerable in a place that you were already vulnerable. You could have just worked and gone back to Serbia and not had asked him any questions, but he altered the course of your life by that one question. Like, how do you do what you do and how can I get there? And I think people just need to do the same thing as take action. Ask a question, reach out to somebody. Same thing that we did with each other. You know, I reached out to you and just said, hey, you posted on the same thing. Let's talk. So what do you do now that allows you to invest?
Good question. So at that point, I was still in Serbia. And frankly, I never wanted to come to this country illegally. I wanted to see what I can do to do the right thing. It's always about doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So I realized I should probably come through graduate school because that gives me 2 years to study, gives me some time to figure out. So he was kind of following me pretty much and guiding me all along the way. When I came to check out the schools, let's say that was 2011 summer, just to kind of see where I can get that MBA business kind of graduate education, I stayed with him for about 10 days. And he took some time off work, drove me back and forth to each school. It was like a trip of a lifetime, basically. We had a lot of fun. That was really a big trigger. I'm like, okay, I got accepted to the school. I'm in Pennsylvania, Bloomsburg University, and now I have to figure out the next steps. And he said, you did the most important thing, and that is decided that you want to take action. You were willing to leave your family behind. Obviously, we stayed in touch and everything, but try a new life, come here for success, for freedom. And I was really, really impressed. And I had that mentoring guideship in him. To be very precise, to tell kind of people, this wasn't a one-way relationship. Bob was in Serbia multiple times, and every time he would come for like 3, 4, 5, 10 days, he would have a blast there. Like, I was there for whatever he needed. I can talk about a few things that I did for him financially, but he really set me up business-wise with that mentality to make sure that I have the tools that I need to succeed and that I start thinking the right way, kind of financial literacy, drive, just business acumen overall. He was really there to just talk, counsel me, guide me. And what's really important is that no matter how much one person is successful, kind of like Bob is, he can learn from you a lot as well. People always think that Elon Musk, right now, the wealthiest person in the world, people think he probably touches everything and turns to gold. Elon Musk has probably 20,000 people working for him, probably more, and at least 15, 20 from his narrow circle that help him out. So it's always a two-way relationship. You just have to be willing to understand, okay, what can I do for this person to help them? Like an example for Bob would be, he wanted to exercise in the morning, but he never wanted to exercise by himself. So I would wake up at 4 a.m. to adjust his schedule. We would go to gym at 5 a.m., which I hated, but I was just there And the worst thing is Bob is a very much a morning person, so we would spend exercising at 5, and he would just talk and laugh, and I just wasn't happy listening to that because I was just tired. But you do that, like, if you, it's kind of like try to help out each other.
Yeah, you add value to each other. That's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately is you have to add value to those that are around you. You can't just take, you can't just ask all the questions and take. You've got to give something back. So, and you did that. You woke up early, even though you didn't like it, to help him out. That's amazing. What's something that you're investing in right now to kind of help further you and your wife's life, as well as helping other people and kind of giving back like Bob did?
So I did learn years ago that poor people work hard for their money. Smart people have money working hard for them. That is something that sounds really harsh, and people just have to go below the depth of it. What it really involves there is not just like a negative stigma, but actually being able to save money and invest rather than spend. So my career at Geico has really been successful so far. I've been there for about 6 years. It's a very successful company. There's a lot of upward movement and lateral as well. A lot of good managers, a lot of good leaders. So I've been, through my predictive modeling experience as well as product management, I have learned the value of hard work, but I also understood that I can probably benefit from my income, save and invest, which is really what I did. Investing money is a lot more important than just saving money because you get that return. And that's basically what I'm doing now. I have started in 2014, pretty much when I started work. As soon as I started getting that solid income, I started investing in the stock market. I was not thinking about real estate as extensively. I always wanted to invest in the stock market. So something through my personal brokerage account, buying individual stocks, as well as through 401k at work, which, as you know, these days you can contribute up to almost $20,000. Maybe it's $19,500 per year. Company has a matching 401k. My wife has a 401k. Plus, you can add any extra savings. So that was really my first base to kind of build that income. Now I'm diversifying into real estate, and pretty much over the last 2 years, I have started purchasing single-family homes. So single-family rentals, because they are pretty strong core that a person can have, and you have multiple benefits from those investments that you might not have with stocks. One of them is clearly you have a clear cash flow that you can reinvest or you can use. You have an equity payoff of the asset, which is very important, and something that has been really good this past year, 2020 actually, is the appreciation. There was a house that I purchased in Texas for $200,000 about 6 months ago. It appraised at 215, so you instantly have 15,000 extra, and then by now I think it's about 230,000. So in 6 months, my $40,000 investment, because I use leverage, I use loans, didn't quite double in value, but it did pretty well. And that's why I think real estate is a way to go. I like diversifying, but I'm really mostly interested in real estate right now.
That's awesome. And I like that you say that. So something I started doing recently is actually doing real estate, because I had a Roth IRA, I had a 401k through the military, and I had some other stocks. All three of those were in stocks. So I'm like, I've got to diversify. That's why I loved and wanted to talk to you, because you have real estate, you've got stocks, and you've got precious metals. So, and I know that you have down here, your asset ratio is 50% real estate, 40% stocks, and 10% precious metals. Can you talk about why you have that breakdown?
Right, absolutely. So I do believe that real estate offers better long-term returns than the market on average. So that means, yes, if you're an expert in stock market and you're really, really good, maybe you can make Warren Buffett's return, which is 18% a year. In real estate, 18 can be received by an average person. So I do know that there is more potential in real estate, but also the assets are not as liquid. There is a bit of a cost of acquisition, just like loans, closing, and obviously I'm leveraged to achieve that greater success. So I wouldn't want to get over leveraged, where if I lose tenants or the economy turns down, I lose my job, that I cannot afford to pay those mortgages. So the reason why I'm choosing right now 50, 40, 10 is I want majority to be in real estate, because I do believe that has the best potential for growth. And there's a huge difference in compound interest after 30 years, whether you have 10 or 50%. Compound interest, the greatest force in the world. It really is. It's phenomenal. And I'm sure you're just like all investors are. That is really why the real estate is my number one. Stocks, I always enjoy. They're pretty steady. They're kind of liquid. My 401k is there to kind of weather through next 30, 40 years, and I do want to diversify. And precious metals, which have done really well in the recent years, is almost like me stashing extra cash that I don't want to keep in cash. I think it's very safe. I think that precious metals have been neglected for a long time. And just as an example, in March when COVID hit and we kind of started working from home, ratio of gold to silver was higher, which means that silver was relatively inexpensive compared to gold. So ratio was so high, it's more than ever in the history of the world. Let's put it that way. I can look last 200 years of ratio between how many ounces of silver you have to pay for 1 ounce of gold. Usually ratio, I believe, is like 50, 60, 40. It was 120, which means the silver is relatively so cheap. And I did know that gold isn't overpriced as well, so it has to be. And right now, the silver that I purchased for $15, $16, $17 an ounce is right now 25, 27. I even went to buy it at 11 and I had the money in my pocket and the store was closed due to COVID. So I never got that lowest price. I do like to purchase that like solid metal, not just paper. So the ratio is just really there because my goal is to get to the level with either of the assets returns should support my life. So hypothetical examples, we have hyperinflation. I keep my job. I can pay off my rentals faster. This isn't something that Americans are thinking much, but I come from Serbia, where a lot of people have gotten a lot of loans. Hyperinflation pretty much ate up the loans, and you paid it off a lot easier if you keep your job, because usually your job salary follows inflation. So that way I'm protected. Again, if there's a hyperinflation, my gold and precious metals will go up. Stocks might go down. If there's a stock market crash, I will still have different assets to kind of counteract. Now, yes, if I could really predict which of these asset classes is going to be the best, I can maximize the gains long term, but I don't want to risk that. I prefer to have that safety and sleep well and know that they all can do well despite of the performance of the other two, and that's kind of my goal.
I love that. A big thing that I've been hearing a lot lately is I don't like risk, and you are mitigating that risk by understanding what you're doing and not gambling. I feel like a lot of people, when they invest, it's just gambling, right? They're throwing money at a stock hoping that it goes up, or throwing money at precious metals hoping it goes up, but you've got to take time to understand what you're investing in. And I think that's really important. But I also think that Bob taught you while you were here. He taught you to understand and gain knowledge so that you know what you're working with. So when you talk to people, just continue, or whoever's listening to this, just know that the biggest risk that you have is your own knowledge on the thing that you're investing in. It's either a gamble or it's actually an investment. So
let me share a story to show you how Bob helped me out. So I started investing when I was 18 years old, and I had no idea what I'm doing. So what we did in Serbia back then that was really popular is you would pool money with other investors to build a building, like a condominium building, multifamily. And you can, because the building hasn't been even started, like let's say it's supposed to start in 2 months, like there's nothing in the ground yet, you can buy a condo for half the price, wait till it's finished, and sell it at the full price. So basically you double your money in less than a year. It's a great deal. So I started and I did one condo. I doubled my money. It was a cheaper efficiency condos back in 2006 in Serbia, like $20,000, $30,000. So let's say I bought it for 20, 10 months I sold it for 30. Easiest money I ever made. Then I'm like, all right, this is working good. Let me do it again. Then I did 2 condos, and then crash happened. And what happened is that one of those buildings never got built. The company went bankrupt. So I lost that money. The other one has been finished after a while. Yes, this ate up majority of my gains from the first apartment and almost everything from the second one. So that was my first learning experience. And for me, that was not a learning experience. This was me losing my money, not knowing what the hell I'm doing. And for 6 months, just freaking out, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. Why did I do it? How could I ever get back this money when I wasn't even working? I was in high school. And then actually a year after, when I went to the US, I told this story to Bob, and I was hoping he's going to give me some pat on the back or hug me or tell me it's going to be okay. You know what he did? he laughed at me. He laughed so hard about my loss. I was like, are you insane? I lost $30,000 or whatever it was. I'm like, what am I gonna do? And he's like, well, this education will be a risk management education that's going to be $30,000, which is the cost of an average American undergraduate year. And you probably learn more than most kids will for 4 years of college.
That's awesome.
I guess you're actually right. And I'm like, look at how he turned that around. He's like, because we are in insurance, we're in risk management. And he just said, you did what you should never have done. And that is invested more than you can afford to lose. So if you have $30,000, you don't gamble 30,000. You invest 29, you gamble 1,000 if you want. I have 30,000 and I practically gambled $30,000, not knowing what I do, not knowing what's the plan B, not protecting my assets. And that's kind of what Bob showed me. So not just that he twisted that back at me, but he actually showed me this is really a great learning experience. And I mean, $30,000 then was like all the money in the world when I was 18. Now it's like, you know, one deal, 1 year, one deal or something like that.
Yeah. It just goes to show the importance of having a mentor, somebody that can be in your corner, that he like you said, he didn't pat you on the back. He didn't give you a hug. He laughed, but he showed you that was the best education that you could have gotten at that time. So that's amazing. So where do you go from here? Like what's your next steps? What do you have in 5 years that you would like to accomplish in investing?
Good question. So I have made a decision and I'm really, really good at sticking to my goals. So my current goals are buy roughly 7 to 9 single family homes. Right now I have, this is going to be my 4th house. So I think we didn't mention this, but I actually locked in yesterday another 4th rental. So another rental in Texas. So started 2021 pretty good.
That's awesome.
So I have those 4 houses that are rented out, and I have another condo actually right here in Maryland that I actually want to sell because it is not cash flowing fully. It's not cash flowing well. It is paid for, so basically money is locked in, but it's not giving me the returns I need. So I plan to sell that condo within the month or 2, and then use that money to purchase another 1 or 2 single family homes and learn more about multifamily. I know you kind of got yourself involved there. And through LinkedIn, I've been seeing there is a lot of interest and different options that you can pursue with multifamily. So I'm gaining a big interest because I like to scale. As we discussed, you kind of have that linear progression that 401k gives you, that your single family homes can give you. But I'm starting to understand the value of scaling my investment. So I kind of want to grow exponentially. So to put kind of things in perspective, my goal is after this year, by the end of 2021, to have roughly 10 assets, 10 investments in real estate, still keep all my stocks and precious metals. And potentially in the later part of the year, I might also add 1 or 2 multifamily investments because I will have probably some extra assets. In 3 to 5 years, let's say 2025, 5 years from now, my goal is to push that to roughly $4 to $5 million assets under management. And the 4 to 5 million does not mean that my net worth might be 4 to 5 million, right. But I am not very highly leveraged. Stocks are not leveraged. I don't purchase in margins. Precious metals are not leveraged. Real estate, not awfully leveraged as well. So I try to make sure that if there is any downturn of any issues, I don't want to lose it. Warren Buffett said, the first rule of business or investments is don't lose money. The second rule is don't forget to rule number 1.
Yeah.
So I'm making sure whatever I did back in 2006, 7, 8, when I invested in Serbia, that doesn't repeat itself. And let me share one more advice for people. So I lost money in Serbia on those real estate investments back then. I was very frightened to go back. Even though I was educating myself for a long time, I was really frightened to purchase my first single family home. So if you have gotten burned once, your life's not over. It's just really a bump that you hit on the road. And you really need to understand that I was frightened. Like now I'm going for 10 this year. I started last year. I was like, what if I do something? And you know, when I purchased basically I own this condo because I lived there and now I'm renting it out since we bought a house. My first home that I purchased this year, 2 houses at the same time, was March 2020 when COVID hit. So imagine, I've been waiting for a year and a half, 2 years, getting education, learning, trying to figure out what to do. And then I purchased it what I consider the worst possible time.
Yeah.
But it's working out good so far. It was just like, I'm like, damn, I purchased this now. Could have not chosen a year earlier, or should I wait now? But it turned out pretty good. So you never quite know, but you got to just know, okay, if the worst things happen, you don't have tenants, can you pay the mortgage? The prices go down, can you afford it? Things like that. So you just got to be able to manage risk.
Manage risk, and that's it. You just have to manage risk. And I love that. What Boris just said, I hope that all of you take to heart. If you've been burned once, it's not the end of your life. Get up and do it again. You know, my wife, she trains horses. It's the same thing there. When you get bucked off, you get back on and you get back on it, right? You go forward. You don't let the fear take over. You use it to fuel you and to fire you. So Boris, I think we're getting close here, but I just wanted to thank you so much for all that you shared with us, and I hope to work with you much more. What other tips do you have for someone that is just starting and trying to change their mindset about their finances, from being a spender to an investor?
So I really think people need to understand financial literacy aspect, and you can find a lot of information online, YouTube. You can watch the show, kind of get yourself interested. I think it's really important to understand that in capitalism generally, you want to have your money work for you. You want to have it invested, because $10,000 today at 10% gives you $1,000. When that compounds over 10 years, it's going to become 100,000. Then it's going to start giving you back 10,000 per year. And that's kind of what you want to really focus on that compounding effect, and understanding that whatever luxuries you think define you are not really the luxuries. We don't have a lot of time, but I will bring up that I sold a 911 Porsche. It's a phenomenal car, because I wanted to invest in real estate, because I was realizing I'm wasting my money away on a Porsche. I sold two Rolex watches that I own, because I realized these are really nice watches to have, but they're not doing much for me. And I was like, what am I doing? Am I going backwards? Am I making the right decision? Like, it's frightening. So what I want really people to understand is there isn't one perfect way. Get educated, do something, get educated, do something. Don't just wait. The worst thing you can do, you know what's the biggest reason why biggest reason investors fail in real estate? They never purchase their first deal. So you really just have to get that action going. My first deal wasn't the best. My second deal might not be the best, but overall, they're all performing assets and they're moving forward. And you kind of navigate that path as you go through, and you just become better at it. It was the same with stock market investments. My first stock picks were not as good as my second ones, which were not as great as my third ones. You don't want to lose the money, but it's okay if your gains are lower than most, as long as they're gains. So I would say that's really what's important for people to read books, understand the compound interest, understand the power of leverage and loans, and that could probably help them a lot.
Everybody, educate and act. So Boris, thank you so much for hopping on here. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Where can people reach out to you if they have questions about what you're doing or how they can help? Where's the best place to reach to you?
So if people are interested, as kind of we connected, I love talking, and they can find me on LinkedIn. I don't really use a lot of social media. Spend a lot of time between my work and my investments. I haven't been as active, but people can look me up on LinkedIn. Just you can put my name down there in the description below, and they can just find me. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in the world that's Boris Harhaji. It's very unusual. I've never seen anyone with my name, so it's pretty easy to get me there.
Yeah, and just like that, he is an amazing person to get to know. So even if you just want to talk to him about his journey, I will put his LinkedIn description down below. So Boris, thank you again so much, and I look forward to working with you some more later.
Absolutely. Let's stay in touch, and we'll share experiences and we'll grow. So thanks a lot, boy. I appreciate you having me. This is very exciting. It's gonna be a good.
It is.
Just got to make it best out of it.
That's right.